DHEA has an uncanny ability to resolve the sexual stuff for guys on TRT. And in this video, I kind of want to explore like the mechanisms by which this happens, because there are a lot of them. Interestingly, I've seen DHEA improve ED, right, by improving libido in TRT people, indicating that it wasn't a vasculogenic ED issue. It was a lack of desire. If you didn't know, DHEA participates in a backdoor synthesis of DHT. There's actually a mechanism by which the upregulation of conversion of DHEA to DHT can take place. But also, aside from the 5-alpha reductases, there are other enzymes that convert effectively androgens into dihydrotestosterone. So DHEA can convert to DHT with different mechanisms other than 5-alpha reductase, whereas testosterone can only convert to DHT via 5-alpha reductase. DHEA has the ability both to activate the estrogen receptor alpha and the estrogen receptor beta, which you would think is a bad thing, but actually it competitively inhibits estradiol from binding to those receptors. And look, although DHEA is largely synthesized in the adrenal tissue, and you make a tad bit in your gonads, when you go on TRT, you lose the gonadal production of DHEA. And there's something to say about Vigorous Steve's contention regarding hormone balance.
High estradiol contributes to sex drive highly, given that DHEA, pregnenolone, progesterone, and testosterone, DHT, are also in a nice favorable balance. So you have your estradiol in a nice balance with all the other hormones, prevents acne, and keeps your libido nice and high.
Your test is super physiologic. You might need to bump that DHEA up to super physiologic levels as well. So yes, dehydroepiandrosterone is more important than you think, and it has been able to revive the sexual system, libido specifically, and therefore a carryover effect on erections in some of my clients. And in this video, I want to explore why. All right, in the meantime, I got 2 major discounts for you guys. Look, Cortex Labs is a performance optimization company and a hormone consulting company for men. We got nootropics, coaching, TRT products, everything in between. Right now, Cortex Stack, buy one, get one free for the rest of this week. Code for that is cortexbogo. That'll end soon. I've got, a certain amount of bottles left, but hey, look, right now my loss is your gain. Torque Nootropics Stack, discount. 35% off. Code for that is 35 Torque. It's also down in the description of this video. And look, I've got 3 slots open, okay, for one-on-one hands-on coaching with me, whether TRT, hormone optimization, sexual dysfunction, libido optimization, nootropics, dopamine restoration, a host of other things. You can hire me in under a minute at livecortex.com. So sometimes the solution to your problem on TRT regarding sexual function or some other effect that you should be getting on TRT that you're not getting on TRT is actually a lot easier than you think. Like, if you go back to the basics regarding TRT and add-ons for TRT, like, what are the things that people typically suggest if you're having some sort of side effect or whatever on TRT? Obviously, changing your dose, lowering your dose, all that stuff, but it's DHEA and pregnenolone, right? Now, pregnenolone is less important for our purposes in this video, but may be still important for some people regarding GABA A receptor activity and kind of calmness on TRT. DHEA is one of those simple things that you could add onto your regimen, 25 to 50 milligrams a day, that might revolutionize the entirety of your TRT protocol. And yeah, in stubborn sexual dysfunction with guys that are on TRT, dose is high, like test is high, estrogen looks fine, they're controlling it, prolactin isn't over range. On the bloods, nothing would be indicative, even DHEA is in a normal range. On the bloods, nothing would be indicative of sexual dysfunction, right? You would think it's a neurological issue, maybe a hypothalamic dopamine issue, a tighter neuron issue. It just seems very unclear. Interestingly, in these cases, 25 to 50 milligrams DHEA solves the problem completely. So I got a couple contentions on why this might happen, and maybe this will help some people that are on TRT. So let's break down why I think this is happening. All right, so first though, here's a really odd one. This is a Reddit thread that's titled DHEA works, TRT doesn't. Wooden clomiphene. Guy goes, the weirdest thing I know, I can't explain. He goes, I've done every TRT dose imaginable, added Pregnal, which is HCG, all of it, gotten my T up to 2200. None of it made a crack at my libido. It even played with E a bunch on it, high, low, very little movement on libido. However, just a small dose of T, okay, so probably 100 milligrams a week or so, and adding 30 milligrams DHEA daily, sex drive is 1,000 times better. What the fuck is going on here, brother? Here's another really interesting anecdotal. Guy goes, added DHEA 50 milligrams daily to TRT and it's completely transformed me in almost an unsettling way. My libido is back. My energy and pump in the gym is insane. I feel less stressed during the day, but my sleep is shit. Now, if you look deep into the medical journals on like conversion to DHT, you're going to find that DHT, other than 5-alpha reductase converting testosterone to DHT, actually has like other kind of backdoor pathways. There are these weird mutations that can take place, which catalyze the production of DHT in cases where you wouldn't otherwise produce DHT via enzymes we've never even fucking talked about. This is a case of castration-resistant prostate cancer. So basically what they tried to do is cut off the DHT in the androgen receptor binding in the prostate, like cut off that supply. But then one of the other enzymes that is a backdoor pathway for converting androgens into dihydrotestosterone, or DHT, which is called 3-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase type 1, upregulated and started converting, in this case, DHEA into DHT. They actually named this mutation. It's called N367T. And the mechanism is that enzyme gets resistant to degradation, right? So instead of degrading, whereas, normally DHEA doesn't convert to DHT at some substantial capacity, but in this case, it upregulated and, that enzyme didn't degrade, so it could convert more DHEA into DHT. To kind of examine further about the pathways that DHEA can convert to DHT, which, by the way, is one of the mechanisms, I think, that DHEA revives libido and erections for guys that are on TRT. Like, it's just the conversion to DHT. I came across this paper titled Testosterone and DHEA Activate the Glucose Metabolism-Related Signaling Pathway in Skeletal Muscle, wherein they say something pretty relevant to us here. And that is that DHEA is metabolized to DHT through 3-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, 17-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, and also 5-alpha reductase enzymes. All right, so these enzymes, first 3-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, as well as 17-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, these are capable of converting your DHEA into DHT, right? And there are a number of different things that trigger whether or not they're going to do it. And as we saw in that castration case, like these enzymes can upregulate in the absence of a proper conversion of, test to DHT, rendering your DHEA more susceptible via a lack of degradation of some of these enzymes to convert to dihydrotestosterone. So look, considering, 5-alpha reductases are sensitive to inhibition, I mean, if you've taken saw palmetto, if you've taken lion's mane, if you've taken other 5-AR inhibitors, obviously if you've taken dutasteride or finasteride, those enzymes can stop functioning to the extent that they did prior, rendering you accumulating more estradiol via test converting to estrogen and less dihydrotestosterone, right? So DHT conversion, like these backdoor pathways of DHT conversion from DHEA, is one of the proposed reasons that DHEA revives people's libido and erections on TRT when TRT alone and managing estrogen and keeping prolactin in range didn't. And one of the other potential mechanisms is, as we explore this paper here, titled DHEA Metabolites Activate Estrogen Receptors, Alpha and Beta, that either you're getting an activation of the estrogen receptors and therefore that via its transcriptional genetic activation or activity, the gene expression post-receptor binding is causing an enhancement in libido. Or, as you'll find if you look deeper into this, what the binding of DHEA does at the estrogen receptor alpha and estrogen receptor beta receptors is competitively inhibit estradiol from binding to those receptors. I don't actually know if the answer is like competitive inhibition of estrogen binding to those receptors by DHEA, specifically DHEA's metabolites, of which there are many, by the way. DHEA sulfate, 17-alpha hydroxy DHEA, 17-beta hydroxy DHEA, 7-keto DHEA. Now, this is in a case of breast cancer where they were trying to determine like the effect of DHEA on the estrogen receptor alpha and estrogen receptor beta receptor sites. What they actually found is that some of the metabolites of DHEA, but not DHEA itself, right? I think a lot of the positives are downstream metabolite wise, competed with 17-beta estradiol for ERA and ERB receptor binding. So if you look at this graph, let's just kind of slow down for a second and look at this. You got DHEA sulfate at the top, converting to DHEA, but look at all the different pathways that can happen here. Again, 3-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, one of those enzymes that can convert DHEA into DHT, will convert to androstenedione. Androstenedione via 17-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase will convert to testosterone. But at the same time, testosterone binds to the AR, but you got 5-alpha reductase right here converting that right to DHT at the bottom of the graph. Androstenedione, though, also can convert to estrone, which is going to activate the ER receptors. That estrone can convert via 17-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase to estradiol, which is then going to bind to the receptors. So it's actually a very complicated map of things that DHEA and its metabolites could end up doing. So to me, it remains a little unclear. I'll probably have to do a little more research on this to figure out exactly what the mechanism by which the activation of the estrogen receptors, whether competitively blocking estrogen from binding to those receptors at high affinity or actually activating them and activating an estrogen-mediated gene transcription, and that's enhancing people's libido. To me, it remains unclear, but I think in time I'll elucidate that and do a video on it. But what that brings to light is the other question and the potential other mechanism by which DHEA improves libido and therefore erections and revitalizes the sexual system for guys on TRT that haven't been able to get it straight, which is, and I maybe hate to admit this, maybe a little more estrogen-mediated gene transcription, right? It might actually be that person needs more estradiol or estrogen-mediated genetic activity in their TRT protocol because they're an under-aromatizer. They're not using HCG, or they just, for the testosterone to estrogen ratio to be balanced in a way which gives them libido balance, right? Going back to Vigorous Steve's hormone balance idea, which has a lot of fucking credence. Maybe they just needed a little more of that estrogenic activity in order for them to have libido on TRT. I mean, you're going to see this too, you know, even though estradiol is largely inhibitory to erections, you know, it's all in context. Like, it could also be the case that in some cases estrogen is facilitative of erections via balancing out the hormone cascades in a tight balance and the TDE ratio in a way which then improves the libido side of things, which usually tends to improve the erectile function side of things. Now, like, I think Vigorous Steve's idea of hormone balance is actually more important than we think, you know, as it relates to this particular like situation. Because yeah, DHEA is synthesized in the adrenal tissue, you know, under normal conditions for the most part, but some degree of it is also synthesized in the gonads. So like when you lose gonadal function to an extent, even if you have some maintenance dose of HCG there, it's not like that's your regular LHFSH pulsing down there and causing all the steroidogenesis. It is different, right? It's not as optimal as your own LHFSH. Considering like this idea of hormone balance, and like really what Vigorous Steve tends to say about this is, look, you're super physiologic on tests, you know, your estradiol's at the top of the range. Like, look, you're probably going to want all these other hormones and neurosteroids also at the top of the range, right? Because if you think about it, when you're down at 500 nanograms per deciliter as a natural, but everything works, you probably have a good hormone balance of DHEA, pregnenolone, obviously estradiol, testosterone, DHT. The whole system is working great in that ratio, albeit a much more scaled down numbers-wise condition than if you were super physiologic on testosterone. But it might be the case that being ultra super physiologic on test and at the higher end of the reference range of estradiol, maybe a little over of estradiol, like you're going to need to bump up all these other very important hormones to the sexual system, as well as other neurosteroids. I don't really know like life with TRT without DHEA, because I've always taken DHEA. I've taken DHEA before I got on TRT. So I don't know, maybe I would have less libido and less like sexual function, which always seems to be pretty prime as long as I dial a protocol in, had I not been taking DHEA forever. I mean, I run micronized DHEA anywhere from 20 to 40 milligrams a day. It kind of depends on how I feel. So this is stuff that I've been religiously taking for like 4 years now. That's been in my regimen. It's Douglas Laboratories DHEA. It's micronized DHEA. And micronizing a compound, which is really splitting it up to very, very fucking fine particles, is said to improve the efficiency of the compound. Now, here's the caveat about DHEA. Across the web, people do report estrogenic side effects and blood levels of estrogen going up just from adding DHEA into their regimen. Now look, this could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. You know, in this case, it's a bad thing. Let's check out this thread. It is titled, "I was dialed in, then I added DHEA and pregnenolone and my E2 has skyrocketed. Thoughts and recommendations." Guy goes, "I was fairly dialed in at 160 milligrams. Okay, so dosed 80 milligrams 2x weekly, 500 IU HCG dosed 2x weekly. He has 250x weekly. Oh, 250 2 times weekly. Yeah, on that protocol, I don't think he's got an AI in here, so I'm wondering why his estrogen is so low. The E2 was at 28. Started 30 milligrams pregnenolone, 25 milligrams DHA, and it initially felt a lot better. Okay, that was probably a rise in estradiol modifying serotonin receptor function, which is one of the things that it does, which is why when estrogen drops very low, you tend to feel very fucked up and depressed. Guy goes, then my face started getting bloated and libido dropped. I suggested increasing E2. Sure enough, got my bloods and E2 was now at 57. Total T was still the same and free T, roughly the same. So I don't know, probably in this case, estrogen did go up and he would probably be better off with maybe 15 milligrams of DHEA a day or 30 milligrams of DHEA every other day. I mean, that's how I would approach that so that the estradiol doesn't go significantly up where he's still in that sweet spot. He mentioned that he felt better on the way up, but then it crossed over a threshold, which is somewhat common with people on TRT. Like you go above a threshold on one hormone, you can feel good on the lead up. It gets overrange and fucking the wheels fall off the bus. And if you go peruse the TRT and testosterone subreddits, you're going to find other people too saying that estradiol went up, like measurable estrogen on the blood went up after they added DHEA into the regimen. So that's just a caveat and something to be careful of. But again, it could go either way. That could be the benefits of that could be the reason why you're getting enhancements of libido and erection function on TRT. You just need a little bit more estrogen, and that you needed that hormone balance, and that elevated level of estrogen really wasn't messing with you because hopefully you've got close to supraphysiologic or supraphysiologic levels of testosterone, and therefore you just induced hormone balance, as Vigorous Steve likes to say, and then everything started working again. Again, back to DHT, there are backdoor pathways by which dehydroepiandrosterone, or DHEA, converts to DHT, right? It isn't just 5-alpha reductase, it's the 3-beta-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase as well as the 17-beta-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, and these enzymes can mutate or upregulate in the presence of a lack of DHT or in certain conditions, and are backdoor pathways catalyzed by other unknown things, likely in some situations, to convert your DHEA into more DHT. Like you're going to find people had hair loss on DHEA, likely because it was converting more of their tests or the DHEA itself via these enzymes into dihydrotestosterone. And then again, the potential for competitive inhibition at the estrogen receptor alpha and estrogen receptor beta receptors by DHEA's metabolites, stopping estradiol from binding to those receptors. There are a plethora of things happening here, or that can happen. Right? I think different things can happen in the presence of DHEA in a man that's on TRT. So the takeaway is, I don't know, maybe DHEA isn't right for you. Maybe it takes estradiol above range and fucks with everything. But at the same time, I've seen it in my client work be the right thing, via one of these mechanisms in improving libido, which interestingly, we thought a guy had ED, brought DHEA and libido was back, and then the erectile dysfunction just went away, right? It was really just a lack of sexual desire that DHEA fixed. But DHEA fixed the ED via fixing libido. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. More to come on this. I think DHEA is kind of an under-discussed topic. There are people that are for it. There are people that are against it. I've run it for 4 years. I will not stop running it. I think it does nothing but benefit me personally. And now you've got some food for thought and know a little bit more about dehydroepiandrosterone, or DHEA. And that's what this channel is about, brother. All right, guys, look, 3 slots open. I've got a 90-day one-on-one package. I have a 180-day one-on-one package. I've got a 1-year one-on-one package. You're working directly with me. I'm looking at your bloods. I'm designing your TRT protocol. I'm designing your hormone protocol. I'm designing your nootropic protocol, designing your dopamine restoration protocol, designing your libido and sexual optimization protocol. I mean, this is full-on protocol engineering with specific goals in mind. You can hire me in under a minute at livecortex.com. Cortex Stack is BOGO. 70 bottles left. I just added some more. Code for that is cortexbogo. You can find the code in the link down in the description of this video. Torque Stack All Day Mental Energy, one of the most powerful nootropics on the web. 35% off. Code for that is 35 Torque. It's also down in the description of the video. All the codes and all the links for all of our products you can find down below. All right, brother. Been epic hanging out with you. Hope you had a great 4th. Hope you had a great weekend. Back to the work week. Let's all fucking just kill it. Sub the channel and look, comment in the comment section, man. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about DHEA, whether it's in your protocol, not in your protocol, what you think of it, whatever you want to put. If you have nothing to say, just punch in my cat's name, which is Max Ballo. And I'll talk to you guys on the next one.